Hey everyone, welcome to Fighting Over the Card Catalog, a snarky look back on young adult novels of the 80s and 90s. I'm Jess.
I'm Steven, and I'm here to make my wife happy.
We're taking a journey to find out how many terrible and hopefully some not so terrible books from my youth I can get my husband to read before he reconsiders this whole marriage. Hi.
Hey, babe.
Hey, babe.
How are you on this vacation Monday?
On this vacation Monday, I'm great. How are you?
I'm tired because I stayed up till 5:30 this morning reading because I could.
Which was a great part until the dogs woke you up.
Yeah, at 8:30 and then 9:30 and then 10:30. And I finally got up at 11:30.
Yeah. Was it worth it?
I mean, I got up at 8:30 to let them out and then I went back.
I mean, staying asleep.
Was it worth it?
Staying awake, yeah.
Oh, I don't know. No, not really.
I mean,
yeah, I mean, I don't know.
Okay.
I felt it for the rest of the day, put it that way.
Yeah.
But the book was worth it because it was Neil Stephenson.
That's what I meant.
Yeah.
But then you did productive things, so I think it was a good day.
It was a pretty good day.
Pretty good day. I slept a lot.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I can't help it. We had our besties in this weekend, and so we did a lot of things. So I'm pretty much just been sleeping since they left. They'll be back on Wednesday night for a whole fun weekend for 4th of July.
Happy Treason Day, Colonials.
Happy Treason Day. It's fine.
I thought it was funny. I saw somebody had posted on Facebook that it just didn't seem like 4th of July was a great day to have a protest.
I love it so much. I mean, after you showed me that, I was thinking, it's like, well, do they mean because most people aren't working and thus, you know, there's not much to stop aside from parades and fireworks? You know?
No,
so
I
it
think
wouldn't be
was,
as effective.
I think it was more because of the.
I know, because it's
the patriotism.
Yeah,
it's
we're doing
un-American to protest.
Treasonous things.
It's
to
un-American
America.
to protest on July 4th.
Yes. Yeah,
that's the most American thing. The most American thing you could possibly do is to protest on July 4th
and throw tea into water.
Well, that didn't happen on July 4th.
No. But that's like the biggest protest. So, I mean, aside from the war.
Create a manifesto and sign it. That's the...
Okay, let's make a manifesto. Just kidding. We're planning on watching Stranger Things all day before we go to a soccer game that night. Which is pretty American.
Yeah, will be fireworks after.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
The city of Frisco does their fireworks at the stadium.
Which is nice.
Yeah. So after the game, we just sit in our seats and watch the fireworks.
And then go sit in hours of traffic trying to
And
get
then literally sit in hours of traffic.
But last year was so good because you and Jessica discovered your mutual 90s Christian rock lives. And that's become a whole thing. And it's great. So, see, we hadn't sit in all that traffic then. We wouldn't have that. And it's excellent. Anyways, I want to make a new playlist for myself to listen to during fireworks.
All right.
A lot of Hamilton, and I'm going to research other good things that'll actually make me feel okay about participating in something patriotic. And there we maybe just lost 5 listeners, but it's okay. That's fine. We have lots of listeners out of the country, so. All right, so this week's book. All right, as it is the beginning of July today, I'm picking books I really love. Well, not all of them. But one of my all-time favorite books is Harriet the Spy, written by Louise Fitzhugh and published in 1964.
Harriet the Spy has a secret notebook, which she fills with utterly honest jottings about her parents, her classmates, and her neighbors. Every day on her spy route, she observes and notes down anything of interest to her. I bet that lady with the cross-eye looks in the mirror and just feels terrible. Pinky Whitehead will never change. Does his mother hate him? If I had him, I'd hate him. If Marion Hawthorne doesn't watch out, she's going to grow up into a Lady Hitler. But when Harriet's notebook is found by her schoolmates, their anger and retaliation and Harriet's unexpected responses explode in a hilarious and often touching way.
Thank you.
So that blurb was fairly accurate.
Oh, yeah. Definitely. I didn't
compared to other blurbs.
Yeah. They might have actually read it.
So I'm kind of two minds about her observations and what she writes about other people. Because, if she's training to be a spy, she needs to, write down her thoughts and feelings of what's going on in an honest manner. Mm-hmm. Like in a lot of books, they'll talk about people and they're telling other people so-and-so is fat or calling people fat. Whereas she's like writing down in a book if somebody's fat or somebody's boring or somebody's ugly.
She's recording her observations.
Yeah. At the same time, she's not really saying a lot of times why she thinks somebody's ugly or why she would hate somebody. But yeah, it's not meant to be put out into the world for other people.
Right.
But at the same time, I don't think it's healthy for her to do it.
No?
Yeah.
I mean, because the whole point is for her to, write these observations down to use later in writing.
Right.
And stuff. And, it's just what she's seeing.
Yeah, but it's like it's like somebody in the book tells her at one point that she hates everybody, and it almost sounds like that because the things she writes for the most part are negative things that she sees about them. So it's like she's choosing to focus on that, on differences and negatives.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's just observations, but a lot of times it's negative things about people.
It's judgments. You said she was judgy.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think she's opinionated.
Yeah. I think I can let her have a pass more than other people who are calling people this or telling their friends that other people are or something when she's just, almost writing like a diary.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's an example of, she's writing what she thinks. And I think a lot of us, we think things, but we'll certainly never say them aloud, but you do think things in your head, make judgments or opinions. She's just writing them down to remember them later.
But she does do, my son was talking about he really wanted to write. And there's been a lot of times in my life where I've really wanted to write. And, there have been times when I've started books and started, even gotten chapters done and then just like, I don't know, lost interest or something.
Yeah.
Hit a roadblock and stopped. Mm-hmm. And it's like I told him, writers write. Writers are always writing. Even if it's stuff that's of no consequence. You're just constantly writing observations or anything, really. And so if he really wants to write, then he needs to just start writing.
So do you think he should have maybe done something like this? Kept a notebook to write down all the time?
We actually did have a notebook, not like a journal note. Well, I mean, it kind of was, but when he was homeschooling, he had to have writing projects, and he had to. I would give him like a topic or something, and he would have to write a story about it, and it would usually be a couple of pages. So he had a notebook that was just filled with stories.
Well, that's good.
Yeah.
But he wasn't writing all the time outside.
Yeah, but he wasn't taking it with him and writing stuff down. Yeah.
So, did you know the publication date before you started reading?
I still don't know the publication date.
I just said it.
Oh, when was it?
1964.
Okay.
Could you tell it was that old?
I could tell it was older, mainly because of the delivery boys on bikes.
Ah, sure. Yeah.
Yeah. That was probably the biggest tell. But other than that, no. Yeah. Other than that, no. And it's kind of like when I read John Carter. I read it before the movie came out. It wasn't long before the movie came. I didn't know they were even making a movie of it.
You're a John Carter hipster.
So I read it and had no idea that he wrote that in like late 1800s, early 1900s.
Oh.
Like 1902 or something like that. So I had no idea. Yeah, I was looking it up to see, well, I wonder if he has anything else coming out. No, he doesn't.
No?
No new
God
books.
damn it. That's fun, because that leads me into I wanted to talk about Louise Fitzhugh a bit, because her life seems to have influenced Harriet a lot. So she was born in Memphis, Tennessee, to wealthy parents in 1928, and she went to a wealthy school called Miss Hutchinson School, which was a girls' school. It still is a girls' school. I was looking at their website last night. I was like...
So she was around Harriet's age when the Great Depression was going on.
She died pretty young, though, at age 46, and 74 of a brain aneurysm. So there aren't a lot of books of hers published. There are actually 2 sequels written by her, kind of. They are sequels. The first one, The Long Secret, it deals with Beth Ellen. You know, the little girl who cries all the time in this book. And Harriet sent it too. I have it. I haven't read it yet.
Oh.
Yeah. And then the other one is Sport, which deals with sport. And
so there was no other real Harriet?
Nope. Huh. There are 2 that were written in like the 2000s.
Oh.
But they weren't written by her. And I've heard they're not very good. So I'm not even going to bother with those. She illustrated books for other people, as well as doing the illustrations for this. So I found some really interesting articles about her. 2 written for the Horn Book Incorporated by Kathleen T. Horning in 2013 and 14. And she's like, has always been super into Harriet the Spy. And it sounded like she was young when they came out. And so it was pretty much from the first. And she got to meet this editor at Harper and Row at a cocktail party in 1982. And she told her about the first...
Did you say 1982?
1982.
Who was this?
The writer of this article and an editor.
The writer of the article.
Yes.
Okay.
So she was telling her about the day Fitzhugh first appeared at the office. It was just the book was just consisted of the journal entries. And the couple, her and another editor, loved it and were like laughing out loud. And Louise sat curled up in a chair, scowling. "You hate it, don't you?" And she was like, "No, we love it. It's just not a book yet. You need a story. Who is this girl and why is she so angry?" Professor Virginia L. Wolfe was researching for a biography of Louise Fitzhugh. And she'd tell this writer, Kathleen, all these, whatever she was discovering. And she was able to confirm what I had long suspected, that Fitzhugh was a lesbian. 30 years ago, this bit of information was considered a lot more scandalous than it was today. So many of Fitzhugh's friends interviewed for the book told Virginia, yes, she was gay, but you didn't hear it from me. Others tried to convince Virginia that she shouldn't mention Fitzhugh's sexual orientation in the book, because it wasn't an important part of her biography. She disagreed and put it in, which I would really like to read. In researching this, Harriet seemed to be like a big icon for lesbian women, particularly because, I'll just read what she wrote. "The thing that shocked me the most about Harriet was her cross-dressing. It's an aspect of the novel that girls today would miss entirely. Thank goodness. But in 1965, Harriet's spy clothes struck me as revolutionary. Back then, girls in blue jeans and hooded sweatshirts were uncommon, though not unheard of. But Harriet's high-top sneakers were solely boys' wear. I know for sure because I used to beg my otherwise indulgent and liberal parents for them, and they refused, although they bought them regularly for my brothers." Yeah. She talks about how, not only in this book, but other books of hers, the message is inherent. Be true to yourself, refuse to conform, find your own way, even if your friends and family threaten to reject you. It will be painful, but you will survive. And that's pretty powerful stuff for kids to read. while they're going through their own shit while they're young. And
Yeah, that's a
yeah,
lot different than a lot of the other books that we read.
exactly. Yeah. And from 1964.
Yeah.
But she also references a 1965 review from the same publication. This was written by Ruth Hill Vigors. She says, the arrival of Harriet the Spy with fanfare and announcements of approval for its realism makes me wonder again why that word is invariably applied to stories about disagreeable people and situations. Are there really no amiable children, no loyal friends, no parents who are fundamentally loving and understanding? I challenge the implication that New York City harbors only people who are abnormal, ill-adjusted, and egocentric. There is an opportunity to throw some illuminating rays on humanity, and occasionally these rays do penetrate the irony. But the objects of Harriet's spying are merely depressing types. Her schoolmates, from ghoulish Janie to pathetic Sport, represent not reality, but the distortion of caricature. Many adult readers appreciating the sophistication of the book will find it funny and penetrating. Children, however, do not enjoy cynicism. I doubt its appeal to many of them. And wow, girl, could you ever be more wrong?
Yeah, I guess people like that, I don't know if they're blind to how their parents really were growing up, or if they just had a great relationship and or if they just never even thought about it. I don't know. Well, but the majority of parents are definitely not what they show they are in the public view.
Sure.
Like when you go to church. And that may be how she sees all the families, the face they put on when they're out in public. And she's thinking, okay, well, everybody, the majority of people are like that.
And I mean, plus it's from 1965, that review. So, I mean,
even in 1865, even in 1765, the majority of families are dysfunctional.
Well, yeah, they are. I'm just saying you saw it much more. I mean, you didn't see the dysfunction outside of the family. In public, there was much more propriety in public and stuff. As even compared to the 80s or so, or maybe even 75.
The 60s were the era of
I mean 64.
They were starting the hippie. And,
I mean that's on
right
a
before
bubble.
Vietnam started.
Yeah. It's an interesting time for this book to have come out. Of course, this was banned a lot, even in the 80s, mainly because she was a bad influence with her lying and stuff. And she says damned once. And so that was a big deal. But, most of the time it's on lists of, great children's books. And So with that, how do you rate it? On the scale of 1 being the best book ever to 10 being the Dementor's kiss of literature.
I've got to say this one is a solid 2.
Wow. Yay. I'm so happy. Me too.
It was fun. It was very meaty. There was a lot to it. A lot going on. There was a lot of story. I was actually worried about remembering enough detail from it to talk about it because there was just so much going on within the book. But yeah.
I decided not to write out summaries of everything, that I'm just going to scroll through the ebook because it's so much. It's absolutely one of my favorite books of all time. I will always reread this book.
Thanks for assigning me this one.
You are welcome. You did listen to the ebook, half at work and half here yesterday? Yeah, it was yesterday. It was. Yeah. Because I slept while you were doing so. But it was so nice because I did, kind of wake up a little bit and
hear some of the story.
And I would hear some of the story and then go back to sleep, and that was just really nice and I loved it. But yeah, you did miss out on the illustrations by her, but I showed them to you later. And I wonder if you would have read it or seen it in your head different, because oh golly's mom is an image always in my head.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know how I would have read it. Anyways, all right, let's get into it and call me oh golly, because there's going to be a lot of quotes. That is what I pulled out of it. So we first meet Harriet and Sport while they are in the courtyard of Harriet's very fancy house on East 67th Street in Manhattan. With that, I found an awesome blog post on Ephemeral New York where they have the house where like online sleuths and everything have like put together all the clues of where her house would be. And so there's pictures of it, and there's even a link to it was on the market in 2016. And so a link to that so you can see inside. And yeah, it was going for $5 million in 2016. So anyway, Harriet is teaching Town how to play sport, which basically just sounds like playing The Sims in a notebook in your head to me. Because it's Harriet just running this whole world and making up stories about them. But it's all just written down in her notebook. I always wanted to do it, but it was very involved, so I don't believe I ever actually did. We then meet, oh golly, Harriet's nurse. And she seems very strict, but she's awesome as hell.
And she's obviously the main influence in Harriet's life.
Most obviously. Yeah. So she comes out of the door and says, "Come on, Harriet, it's time for you to see some of the world. You're 11 years old, and it's about time you did this. Sport, you could learn some things too, so come on." So they take subway and a bus way out to far Rockaway, and they come into this weird little house. A very large woman opens the door.
Obviously Harriet describes her a different way.
Yes. The fat lady stood like a mountain, her hands on her hips, in a flowered cotton print dress and an enormous hanging coat sweater. Probably the biggest sweater in the world, thought Harriet. Probably the biggest pair of shoes, too. How would you describe Mrs. Golly? I mean, her.
Dim-witted or slow, low IQ.
Yeah. I don't know
Simple.
what a politically correct term is. Oh, golly is interesting during this visit. She's very matter of fact, but you do see a bit of sadness behind her. But she says, "Behold, Harriet, a woman who has never had any interest in anyone else, nor in any book, nor in any school, nor in any way of life, but has lived her whole life in this room, eating and sleeping and waiting to die." Harriet stared at Mrs. Golly in horror. Should old Golly be saying these things? Wouldn't Mrs. Golly get mad? But Mrs. Golly just sat there, looking contentedly at Harriet. So, what did you think about old Golly bringing Harriet and Sport to meet her mom?
I mean, it's good to see other people.
Mm-hmm. Because they live in a very well-to-do, privileged, even though Sport isn't so much. His bubble is still, a very certain type of person.
Seeing the house itself and the conditions that she's living in, and just knowing also that Golly herself was raised in an environment with a parent like that, and apparently was very intelligent herself. So
yeah, I agree with that. Do you think it's weird though that she just took her out there to show her off
I mean, I kind of see her as being a mentor to her and showing her all kinds of people is a way, is something that children probably should know.
Yeah, she should know it. But I mean, she brought her out there and showed her mom off like she was an animal in a zoo or something. And so I have always had mixed feelings about that. I agree that, I mean, I like that she's showing her, but it's her own mom. And she's just, I mean, who doesn't seem to mind and is glad she's visiting. So I guess that takes, makes it better. Even though she gets sad until she's leaving until she says, "I'll be back next week." She's like, "Oh yeah." And she gets all happy again. It's a very interesting way to start the book. Because it's, a bit heavy and real. Yeah, but it gives her a lot to think about, our old Harriet. And lots of things to write down in her notebook. I had a couple of quotes from when they were playing Town. Harriet goes, "I'll show you where the fun is." Harriet got very businesslike. I love that contradictory. It's like, look, I'm all about having fun, but let's do this serious.
Right.
And Sport goes, "What does the baby look like?" And Harriet goes, "She's ugly."
Yeah, so it kind of reminds me of like when people do reenactments and stuff like that. It's only fun if you get serious about it and do it
Yeah,
right.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Oh, and old golly says at one point, "Don't be snarky, Harriet, and don't think you're such a wit either." I think that's the first time I ever heard the word snarky, and I loved it ever since. So this has all been the day before school starts. So we kind of get a feeling for how it is in Harriet's house. It's her and old golly up on the third floor. And that's pretty much the main part of Harriet's world in her house. Old Golly's tucking her into bed, and she's like, "Am I going to see my parents tonight?" And she's like, "No, they're out at a party. You'll see them in the morning."
So what is it that her dad does? Is he something in the movies, like a
I
movie
think
producer?
TV. I think
Okay.
he's a television producer.
He calls people Rat Fink a lot.
He says Fink and Rat Fink, and Harriet picks it up, and it's very funny. So the next morning, we finally meet her mom, and when she's trying to talk Harriet out of taking tomato sandwiches to school. That's all she's taken to school for 5 years, and it bothers her and the cook.
Okay, so I got interested. Did you ever want to have tomato sandwiches after reading
Oh,
this?
I ate them all the time.
Yeah.
After this, yeah. I mean, it's just white bread with mayonnaise and some slices of tomato and some salt on the tomatoes. It's very important. Yeah. And it's messy, but yeah, it's yummy. I don't know if I'd like it so much now, but I am curious to try. So we may need to do that. But, oh yeah, I absolutely ate them. And I have a feeling a lot of other girls did too. Yeah. Our parents were asking her, like, aren't you excited about school starting? And her dad's like, are you looking forward to school? Do you like school? And Harriet's just flat out like she didn't know how she knew about school. And I mean, I think that makes sense. It's a bit of a ridiculous question to ask a kid because, I mean, it's what kids do. Most kids do. It's their norm, and it's like they don't have a choice in it. So,
yeah, I think that's the main questions relatives ask kids that they haven't seen for. How old are you now? What grade are you in? Do you like school? Yeah. They're trying to find something to relate to, I guess.
Coming from her dad, though, that's kind of sad. But, I mean, it's first day of school, so I guess it makes sense.
See, with the grandkids, I'm just going to have to find out whatever they were just into and then say, hey, how about that Justin Bieber? He's an asshole, isn't he?
I hope they're not into Justin Bieber.
No, just give that as an example.
Yes. And then Harriet walks a couple blocks to school, to her fancy private school, where it's mainly a girls' school, but they let boys attend through the sixth grade. And so next year, sport won't be with her at school. She's pretty sad about that, but they've got one more year. There's only 10 kids in their class, which you commented is very
like
small.
12 or something, but
it's 10. It lists them all off when she takes the role. So it was only 10 kids, which seems very small indeed, but it reminded me a lot. I don't remember if I read this before or after I'd started going to Catholic school, but it reminded me a whole lot of that because it was a smaller class than I was used to. I'm pretty sure it was like 20, but not 10, but still small.
Yeah.
And it was in 4th grade, and everyone had known each other since 1st grade, like most of the kids in the class. Right. So I was like the boy in the purple socks. But yeah, so in my head, I always pictured it as like my 4th grade classroom in this tiny school. So we meet Harriet's other best friend, Janie Gibbs, and I love this girl with my whole heart.
Yeah, she was a good character.
Yeah, I'm just going to read this whole description of her.
So here's one thing I really liked about the book. There were times when my jaw would drop at some of the things they were saying.
Yeah.
And I couldn't wait to hear what they would say next. Like, it was so out there. Uh-huh. But this girl, I'll go ahead and let you do your quote because they probably have something to do.
Yeah. So she had a chemistry set and planned one day to blow up the world. Both Harriet and Sport had a great respect for Janie's experiments, but they didn't understand a word she said about them. Janie came slowly toward them, her eyes apparently focused on a tree across the street in the park. She looked odd walking that way, her head turned completely to the right like a soldier on parade. Both Sport and Harriet knew she did this because she was shy and didn't want to see anyone, so they didn't mention it. And later on, we learned that when she's upset, she looks very happy and has this scary grin on her face at all times. And when she's fine, she doesn't look happy. I think she's like resting bitch face. Yeah, she's a little scary, but I love her a lot. Also, we've learned about Sport that he does all the cooking and cleaning at his house while his dad's sleeping or whatever because he's a writer, and so he keeps uncommon hours. And I really liked the switch gender roles of Janie and Sport.
So he wants to be a ball player.
Yeah, he does want to be a ball player, but
if that doesn't work out, he wants to be a CPA.
Yeah. Yeah, because he is already taking care of all their finances in his books.
Because if his dad didn't do it, they just wouldn't have money for food.
Yeah, which is horribly sad.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I knew some people kind of like that, where their parents were so irresponsible that they were kind of taking care of their other siblings and cooking meals and stuff. Yeah. So not only is there a gender switch, there's also an age switch.
Yeah.
Where it's like he's taking care of his dad instead of the other way around.
Yeah. So we meet all the other kids in their class, and there's only 2 boys. One they don't know, so they call him the boy with the purple socks. He was new last year. Even though they do know his name, they don't call him that. And there's poor Pinky Whitehead, who is so pale, thin, and weak that he looks like a glass of milk. A tall, thin glass of milk. Sport couldn't bear to look at him. Harriet turned away from habit, then looked back to see if he changed. Then she wrote, "Pinky Whitehead has not changed. Pinky Whitehead will never change." And then the rest are all girls, and Marion Hawthorne sounds terrible and bossy. And she leads this little clique of girls who are a bigger group than Harriet, Janie, and Sport. So they vote a lot in this class, but they always win. Stuff like Marion's the class president.
I feel you, girl. I feel you.
Yeah. So after school, Sport's like, "Hey, you want to come over?" And she's like, "No, I gotta go on my spy route, but maybe if I have time." And he's like, "Janie's working in the lab. You both are always working." And I love this about them. They take themselves so seriously, which, I mean, I think a lot of 11-year-olds do. Not necessarily.
Not to this
degree.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah,
at one point, exaggeration,
at one point, Harriet says something like, "And half of the class doesn't even have a career yet."
Yes, I love that so much. We have to learn about Harriet's after-school life. She runs home and runs into the cook to have her cake and milk, which she does every day. And they say, Harriet loved doing everything every day in the same way. I feel that a lot. And I wonder if she had influence on me over that.
On your OCD?
Yeah. I mean, she didn't, manifest my anxiety, but it made it okay, maybe. I'll say that. Acceptable to myself. Then she goes upstairs to put on her spy clothes. Like we were talking about before, it's jeans and an old sweatshirt that her mom hates. And she threatened to throw them out. And she has actually thrown out her old pair of blue sneakers with holes over each of her little toes. But, yeah, she obviously rescued them.
Yeah, it's weird. I didn't think twice about that when it described her outfit.
I know.
Didn't think twice about it.
Yeah. Especially, I mean, from the illustrations, it looks like high top Converse. And that's, Converse pretty much all I wear. So it's not weird. It wasn't weird then in the early 90s when I was reading this. And she also wears glasses to make herself look smart. She doesn't need them. But most importantly, she's got this belt with hooks for all of her spy tools. Sounds like a Swiss Army knife and a flashlight and things like that she doesn't really ever use, but they're there just in case. So we then get to go on her spy route with her. Okay, we start with Mrs. Agatha K. Plummer, which is the scariest and most dangerous assignment she's had.
Yeah,
I love
this
how
was.
she tells herself it's an assignment. Yeah, so it's this very rich lady, but Harriet's discovered she can sneak into their kitchen and jump in the dumbwaiter. And
She literally breaks into their house, gets in their dumbwaiter,
uh-huh. And like pulls herself up.
pulls herself up to the room where this lady is, I don't know,
Uh-huh.
bedridden or something.
Well, she took to her bed is what she did. But she considers it working because she is deciding on a career whilst in bed all the time. And Harriet's just like, this is crazy. Isn't she bored? What is she doing? But she says, oh, golly says that rich people are boring, and this must be what she means. So yeah, she just watches her talk on the phone in bed through this crack in the dumbwaiter, and it's creaky, but she doesn't get caught, and she's never been caught. She's very proud of that fact. She does go and see Sport in between, and he's doing his cleaning thing, and he tells her about the CPA and all his books and stuff. Well, he asked her, does she know what a CPA is? And she's like, no. And this sentence, 2 sentences, they had a big influence on me. She never minded admitting something she didn't know. So what? She thought, I could always learn. And man, if most people would ascribe to that,
Yeah.
the world would be so much better.
Ignorance is not a dirty word.
No.
It's just admitting that you don't know something. And every person in the world is ignorant.
Exactly.
Every single one of us about different things.
Something. You can't know everything. You literally can't. So if you just, say real easily, nope, don't know what that is. Yeah. Tell me. Then you know.
So it's very important for those with young kids. It's very important to let them know. Yeah. It's okay not to know something. Let us know so we can teach you.
Right. Because so many people will go, oh yeah, sure, I know what that is. And never learn. And, just to make it look like, oh no, I don't know something.
Yeah, I don't want
They're going to think I'm stupid or something.
Honestly, when I was in school, that was one of the biggest pushes for me to learn stuff is that I did not want to admit that I did not know something. Mm-hmm. And I didn't want to be called in the middle of class and not be able to answer a question, because when I did, I was completely embarrassed.
Yeah.
And same. And if I didn't know something and we were talking about something, I would just sit there hoping I would not get called on. But then, after school or whatever, I would hit the books and I would learn about what we were talking about, just in case we started discussing it again the next day.
Just so you didn't look stupid. Not because you really wanted to learn or have the knowledge.
It was a huge motivator not to be, well, first of all, to have any attention whatsoever on me. And then second of all, to look in my eyes stupid. Mm-hmm. And, when my kids were growing up, that was a dirty word, calling somebody stupid, because I felt stupid and I probably was called stupid.
Probably.
At times. And yeah, I know how bad it felt. So that was a dirty word more than what other people call dirty words. So.
Nice. I love that. That's very good.
And I taught them very young. She's not stupid. He's not stupid. They're ignorant. Mm-hmm. They just don't know. Ignorance means not knowing something. Right.
And there's nothing wrong with that.
And that can be corrected.
Yeah. So we also get into a bit of, we're talking about how, his sports dad doesn't really make much money. And Harriet's all like, I hate money. Well, you'd jolly well like it if you didn't have any, Sports said arrogantly.
Yeah.
Harriet considered this. It was true. She'd never had to think about it. And yeah, I really appreciate that.
Yeah, I had people who grew up with money and never had to go without, who would make fun of me for having 2 pairs of jeans or wearing hand-me-down clothes. And I hope that as they became adults, that they look back on that and thought
Mm-hmm.
how bad that was, and hopefully taught their children who probably were also privileged,
Yeah.
hey, don't do that.
Yeah. So we go on to Harriet's next spy assignment, which is at the DeSantis grocery store, where it's a big family who hang out a lot in the back room, and she spies on them. And one son's always wanting to go take the truck, and the mother is always like being very dramatic. You take the truck, you get killed. But there's the older brother who's like, just let him have fun. He's 18.
It's kind of fun because she's like an only child.
Mm-hmm.
So she gets to see a completely different family dynamic. You know, they're a different income level.
Right.
They've got multiple kids. She gets to see the kid who works there.
Mm-hmm. Little Joe Curry.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I had pulled this quote. What is it like to have brothers and sisters? One thing, whenever they yelled, it wouldn't always be at you. Sometimes it would be at your brother. Then you could laugh.
Yeah.
Yep. But yeah, we meet little Joe Curry out in the back, and he's like a skinny guy. He's their delivery boy. And he's always like eating and stuff. But he's also giving away some food to these 4 skinny little kids that show up. And he gives them money. Not money.
Yeah,
he
so
gives
she
them
describes
food.
that he has all this food set aside that he's about to eat. And then it ends up that he is eating food.
He's eating a lot himself anyway.
Himself. Okay, and they're working at a grocery store, right? Or
yes.
a little like I see it kind of like a bodega.
It might be a bodega,
yeah. But he takes a lot of the food and gives it to these kids. So it's not all. He's not stealing he's not embezzling just for himself.
Not just.
Some. He's embezzling for the starving kids too. And yes, it is embezzling anytime you steal anything from your employer.
Right.
If it's a pen, you've just embezzled a pen.
Oh. Dag, I embezzled so much from where my parents worked. If like they had to go in on a Sunday or something, they'd take me in. Nobody would be there.
Yeah.
I'm not going to say the company now.
Right. My dad worked for an oil field company. We would do stuff. We take Post-it notes and
I knew where like
clips
the like cabinet was, where like everything was, and my God, I loved even back then me some stationery products and shit. So I'd always steal pens and stuff. Oh dear, I embezzled from a very big insurance company. So actually, I don't feel bad at all. It's not my current insurance company, but fuck them all. Anyway. I love this. That night, Harriet's taking a bath, and her dad comes in, and he's like making all this noise, talking about Finks. And Harriet stands up in the bathtub trying to hear, and old Golly keeps coming in and saying things, and she's obviously doing it on purpose.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't read it as that when I was younger. She's like, shut up, just like Harriet is like, why? I'm trying to listen. They talk about how her dad's got like this high pressure job and stuff, and out of the blue, Harriet asks, oh, Golly, do you have a boyfriend? And she says, yes. Yes, Harriet almost fainted in her bathwater. So, yeah, she's really starting to learn, that old Golly's got this whole life aside from Harriet. Oh, and then she asks her, is it unsanitary to have a lot of cats in the house? And old Golly's like, well, cats are pretty clean, but if it's a lot of cats. She's like, yeah, it's probably 25. Because at this other assignment of hers, Harrison Withers, she spies on him through his skylight into his 2-room.
She figures out he's coming home with groceries and wants to see if he eats the same food that the cats eat.
Right, because in one room live all these cats. Turns out it's 26. While in the other room, he has his bed, a chair, a work table, which he makes these like unbelievable sounding bird cages, like these huge, intricate things. And he's incredibly happy when he's working on them. And it's just, I don't hate his life, aside from, I can't imagine the smell in the other room. The health department's like always after Harrison Withers, apparently. But he never opens the door if they're wearing a hat. The next day, Mrs. Plummer's not at home because she's off at a spa or something. The maid's telling little Joe Curry about how she's there all day. And Harriet's like, I wonder what they do to her all day. I once saw my mother in a mud pack. They'll never get me in a mud pack. And this is the first instance of, you find this throughout the whole book with not just her, but with Janie too. The they in their lives. It's like whether it's parents or people at school or somebody unidentified, there's always a they that's like out to get them. And it's like, it sets up very much the kids against everyone else in the world. Then we're off to meet the Robinsons. They're a very rich couple who live in this duplex, and they're incredibly boring. They mainly just sit there until they have company, and then they like to show off their house and all the things they have. And Harriet says they never worked, and what was worse, they never even read anything.
Yeah, it was one of her illustrations of them just sitting there.
Just sitting there, looking fancy. Literally doing nothing until their guests come and they show them all these things like their vase and his guns and all this.
Yeah, it's hard to define.
Yeah, and they don't even let their guests talk.
Yeah, it's like they start to talk and then,
oh, but look at this. Yeah, Harriet falls over laughing watching. She goes and watches Harrison Withers some more. And yeah, he comes in now with his groceries. And it turns out they all get tuna while he just eats yogurt. And she thinks about this a lot. She's like, she likes his life and that he's so happy in what he's doing. She says, he loves to just sit there and work and do little movements to his work. And she says, he loves to do that. Is this what old golly means? She says people who love their work love life. Do some people hate life? Anyway, I wouldn't mind living like Harrison Withers because he looks happy. Except I wouldn't like all those cats. I might even like a dog. And she's not down with just eating yogurt all the time, too. Because there's nothing like a good tomato sandwich now and then. And then she goes to visit Janie. And she's smiling, so it's very bad. She's working on one of her experiments, which her mother doesn't like. And she's got like this full sounding chemistry set up, it sounds like. And she comes off as very mad science, but I love it. But she's also learned that her mom wants her to go to dancing school, and she is just refusing. She's like, they're going to get you too. And it's true.
Heard mom say she talked to your mom.
Yep. Her mom comes into the room, and she's real weird. But Janie makes something blow up. And scares her mom out of her room, and there's about to be a big thing. So Harry's like, I'm taken out. Bye.
Peace.
And she goes, don't give up. And Janie whispered back, never. But then at that night, Harriet throws this fit out of nowhere saying, I'll be finked if I go to dancing school. No, first she says, I'll be damned if I'm going to dancing school. And they're like, don't use words like that at the table. She's like, all right, I'll be finked if I go to dancing school. And it's like, she feels ridiculous doing this, but she feels she must take a stand, a preemptive stand. And she gets in trouble. They don't deal with her. They get old Golly to deal with her. But it turns out to be a good thing because old Golly is smart and she knows how to handle her. She's like, you want to be a spy, right? She's like, yeah, spies don't dance. And she's like, well, we saw that movie with Mata Hari, and what was she doing? She wasn't going around in old jeans. She was just fancy and dancing with all these people. And Harriet's like, fuck, she's right. And so she eventually has to tell Janie that, I'm so sorry, they got me. And Janie's like, yeah, I have to go too. So it's old Golly's day out, or her night off, or whatever. Mm-hmm. So Harriet's like, hey, I bet she's going to see that boyfriend. So she completely spies on them. And yeah, this guy shows up on a delivery bike, but it's not Little Joe Curry. Some other dude. And Golly comes out and meets him, and they start walking around the park, and they have this very stilted way of talking. You can tell they haven't been dating very long. They're still being very polite, and it's pretty cute. And he makes her blush and everything, and Harriet is mortified by this, basically. His name's Mr. Waldenstein. And it makes her think, like, this is not old Golly. It makes her very uncomfortable that she's acting completely different with this dude. And it makes her wonder, like, is everybody a different person when they're with somebody else?
Yeah, because he's
Which
talking
is
about going to eat
interesting.
this Greek food, was it?
German.
German food.
Yes, there were worse.
She had said that if she had one more worst something or other.
Yeah, because they'd had a German cook before, and she was sick of them.
But no, she was saying that, oh, no, I would love to go.
That's great.
And then he asked if she wanted to go to a movie, and she never wanted to go to movies. She
doesn't like movies, yeah. And now she's like, yeah, and Harry's like, what?
So she has to, the next day, she's just gonna, like, how was your date?
Mm-hmm. What did you eat?
And she was like, oh, it was great.
I had this new kind of wurst that I loved. And Harry's like, this is some bullshit. But guess what? A few nights later, her parents are out to a party. And she's looking forward to the night because when that happens, old Golly will like make something new to eat. And they'll sit and play checkers and watch TV. Because those are boring on their own. But your mind can always be occupied if you're doing two at the same time. So she's like, hey, what are we having? And old Golly is acting weird because Mr. Waldenstein turns up at the door and all three of them have dinner together. And at first, Harriet's like, no, I'm not going to be nice to this dude. But he wins her over. He tells her how he used to be rich with a wife and a son, but he was miserable. So he quit his job and I guess got divorced. So he's been working as a delivery driver, but now he's been promoted to a cashier and he's been thinking about how two become one. And things get pretty silly. He's like, well, then to celebrate, why don't we all go to the movies? All three of us. And old Golly's like, oh no, that would never do. But Harry's like, fuck yes, let me go get the paper. We're going to figure out what we're going to see. And she like gets him out the door because they're just sitting there all staring at each other and being gross. But then, oh yeah, he doesn't have a car. He only has this delivery bike. But they put Harriet in the box. And old Golly rides on top. And they go to the movies and have a great time. And then they even get to go to a drugstore after where Harriet has a chocolate egg cream, her favorite. Have you ever had an egg cream?
I don't think so.
I've always been curious because of this. I think we're going to have to try this too. I think we're going to have to make an egg cream and a tomato sandwich. Not at the same time. I don't think that would be good. Harry would probably be down with it. But anyways. But so then they come home. And when they get home, Harriet hears old Golly go, oh no. And it turns out her parents are home early. And they are freaking out because everybody's gone. Which, I don't blame them for that initial reaction. But even once they are able to see Harriet's fine and everything's okay, her mom is still like losing her shit. And it's a bit over dramatic. And she's yelling and she fires old Golly and says, yeah, we can't have this. So Harriet starts crying and it's a really terrible scene. She makes Harriet go up to her room and get in her pajamas, but she comes back to spy, of course. Mr. Welsh, Harriet's dad, has been talking with Mr. Waldenstein and old Golly, and she's like, look, this was a misunderstanding. Everything's okay. And then Mr. Waldenstein's like, well, she was going to leave next month anyway because I asked her to marry me. And then the mom's like, oh, no, we can't do without you. But she's like, no, this is what's going to happen. It's time for me to go. And Harriet's old enough and it's time for her to start, taking care of herself, basically. And Harriet's kind of like, well, she's kind of flattered that old Golly thinks that she can take care of herself, but obviously very upset. And they do this wonderful, and it reminds me that, I think the 96 movie with Michelle Trachtenberg and Rosie O'Donnell, I haven't seen it in forever, but I'm pretty sure it was really close to the book because there are so many moments reading this that I see the movie part in my head, especially this part where old Golly goes, the time has come, the walrus said, and Harriet starts coming down the stairs going to talk of many things, and they go through that whole bit from Alice in Wonderland. And it's just lovely. So the next day, old Golly's leaving, and we learn that, she's not going to be anywhere close. She and Mr. Waldenstein are moving to Montreal. And that's pretty upsetting to Harriet, because they're probably never going to see each other again until Harriet writes a book. And old Golly will come and ask her to autograph it for her. And then old Golly's like, we're not going to cry or anything like that, but Harriet is pretty sure she does see a tear drop. She says that night, after having to take her bath alone and getting in bed alone, she says, I feel the same things when I do things alone as when old Golly was here. The bath feels hot, the bed feels soft, but I feel there's a funny little hole in me that wasn't there before, like a splinter in your finger. But this is somewhere above my stomach. And it's very sad. Because now we get to book 2, the depression phase.